welcome to another week of the Weeks in Tavern, a WoW News podcast. I'm Subtle, joined as always by Hando. How's it going, Hando?
Hello, Subtle. It's going great. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing fine this week as well.
Doing fantastic. And what a week it's been. Speaking of which, what have you been up to in WoW this week?
I haven't played any beta for the raid testing, but I have been watching my good friend, you, Subtle.
Oh,
So I've been living through you a little bit through that. I played a little bit of SoD this week, and I've been doing a lot of archaeology, which I'm sure many of our listeners are probably in the same boat. So
yeah.
anyone that is doing that, I wish you many small dig sites and many of the ones that you need, and hopefully you get what you want. How about you? You been
Yeah.
up to anything fun other than the raids?
I mean, pretty similar for me, other than instead of SOD, I've been doing some Cata raids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a lot of digging, a lot of Cata raids, which we'll get into a bit later. But let's just hop right into it because I think basically everything we've been doing this week is stuff we'll be, probably covering as we go. So
That's right.
let's just get right into it. Um, Listener questions first up. This week we got one from Ubi. We have a resurrected 25-man heroic raid team for Cata from former Wrath/TBC guildies, plus a few new faces. Our trusted officer core is only 3 people at the moment. How would you suggest we optimize our limited time pre-release and during raids to ensure success? I'd like to put a lot of responsibility on the raiders to build each other up, to review logs, and encourage improvement. I'm leaning towards that's my best for loot distribution, again, to put the onus on them to know their upgrades and speed up loot. Any other ideas? You want to take this first, Sando? Like, as a, guild leader, raid leader, I think you probably have a good perspective on this.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this is a very hard question to answer though, for a very specific reason, and that's because everyone's different, right? The goal of a guild is to have like-minded people with like-minded goals and the core leadership. Uh, what I would suggest doing is potentially doing polls, or something that I would do is maybe like polls and see what works best for the majority. Um, just get a feel for the crowd. You know them better than I do, so I mean, I think that's my biz is probably a good starting point, because it does put a lot of responsibility on themselves and knowing their own things. But you also don't want that to create some sort of hostile environment uh, between raiders, right? Like you don't want it to be like, oh no, that's not actually your bis. Um, so maybe you can do something fun with it and add, um, maybe that is your bis versus like the bis, right? Like maybe that's an obtainable goal for someone that knows that they're middle of the pack DPS or something like that, right? And they're like, hey, I'm okay with having the secondary upgrades versus the very tippy top. Um, so that's probably what I would suggest for like loot and stuff. To catch up in the pre-release, I mean, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Like we're going to be leveling up and gearing up so quickly. Whether you level, 20 minutes slower than the guy that's in full ICC gear, I don't think it matters too much. The best thing you can do is just get your players together and figure out which systems all around work best for you. Whether that's organizing Discord channels, organizing how your raids and raid times are going to be, and then like the loot systems and stuff. I think that's probably the best thing that you can do, and I don't think there's much more for you to do. I found a lot of success in the GDKPs, so I can't speak too much on that's my best. I've used it, but um, who knows how that goes with SoD, killing it. Who knows if that's the future of WoW, where they're like, hey, no more GDKPs. So
Yeah, a lot of good points there. Definitely need to tailor it to the people you actually have. For sure, second the polls thing. Just getting a feel for like where everybody in your group's at. Like you could have one vision for the guild, but if 20 people in your guild, aren't on board with what you're trying to do, just not going to work out. As far as that's my base, one of my guilds has used that a little bit, not as like the primary like loot system, but it was like loot council like assisted by that's my base, and it worked pretty well. One of the big things was like a lot of people just don't even fill it out, and so then the officers they'd have to like go in and like fill out everybody's base list for them, and it just like it didn't really like reduce the amount of work the officers were having to do. And like you can say like, oh, those people just don't get loot then, but I mean, like it just doesn't really work out that way usually. Like you, for a functional raid, you like kind of need people like getting loot, right? So I don't know. I think in general though, that's my bis is really solid, and hopefully you can get everybody to actually fill them out, and then you should be okay.
Yeah, I think it's just different strokes for different folks, you know? Like if you're in like a top end rating guild and your best performer is the first one to get a trinket, it just kind of makes sense, right? Like uh so for that, like loot council is great, but like if you're running something a little bit more casual, maybe there's different options and stuff. So it all just depends on, you know, the entirety of the guild and not just the officer corps, especially with something that's going to be long lived, hopefully throughout the entire expansion.
Yeah. One thing to note too in Cata raids is you can get multiples of the same item. So like in a 25-man raid, when you kill like Magma, he might drop like 3 or 4 of the. I think he has like a caster dagger or something. You might just get a bunch of those. So like, you know, some of these items may not be as hard to get as they were before, because you could just like get you know, a weapon for like half your raid on like one kill. And you know, generally weapons are like kind of the most sought after item outside of like trinkets. So
Wouldn't that be great?
yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to go on a little side tangent here because of this question, also, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a big fan of the GDKPs, and I've always been like, don't RMT, right? Like that's I know there's people that are within my guild that probably do it, and I don't want to like condone them for doing that, but it's not something that I'm like always advocating, right? Like I do not want people to have to do that. I want a system that works for everyone. Um, and I think the G for me in GDKP stands for global. So if you look at it in a sense that you can use the currency like a DKP anywhere, the gold makes a lot of sense, right? And if you're not buying gold, or if there's no way to buy gold or whatever, you know, there's no real money transactions, the like it's almost a perfect system. So I don't know if there's a way that Blizzard, maybe this is a little cope or whatever, but Blizzard has some outdated systems. I don't think I've ever been in a party ever that round robin has been used.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
I have either.
Yeah, like people forget about it, right? Like it's free for all, master loot, or like group loot. That's basically it. Like that's just what people use. What if they added a system that used like an outside source that maybe they tracked, and it was basically however many bosses your character killed, or how many bosses your character plus your alts killed, if they're married together or compounded together, however you want to phrase that, you know what I mean? And then it showed how many bosses they killed on which difficulty, and then they added points to your character for that, and then you can spend those points, like almost like as if WoW added their own DKP system in, where it would allow you to spend that currency anywhere.
Yeah,
And I
are you talking about sort of like Valor points, except they like work across your account, your whole
Right,
account?
right. And you can, when you spend them on, you know, that character, but it uses them for the collective.
Yeah. Hmm. So would there just be vendors that you like spend those at, like current Valor Point
No, no,
vendors,
no. I
or?
think I think that it should be a system that's managed through the game's loot system. So like
Hmm.
you can bid, or maybe like something pops up or whatever. Like there's no way that we're out of the realm of possibility that a dev can like put some time in and make like a RC loot council or like a bidding thing like we have for our GDKPs. There's like no shot that they can't do that in this day and age. So something like
Hmm.
that, even, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like maybe just like it's GDKP, but instead of gold, you're using whatever this currency is, which
Okay.
is essentially just time and effort, right?
Yeah.
Which is essentially the same thing as a GDKP, right? You're spending time and effort to make the gold, to then spend the gold on whichever character you want, as long as you're not doing RMTs.
Yeah. So yeah, it would be similar, you're saying, to like our current GDKP D add-on, where like item pops up, you like bid your whatever, your universal points, whatever
Right.
we want to call it, on. Um, would they be usable on anything else, or like it's only like
I mean,
throughout that system?
I mean, maybe there's different like caps and stuff like that that you can put maybe for like different rarities of items or vanity items or whatever. I mean, I couldn't tell you for sure, exactly what I want, but I think for at least raid dropped items, I think it would make a lot of sense that you can do that, and you can't gain it out of the raids. You can only gain it in the raids, so that there's no like disadvantage to someone that plays, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, so they can make it. But then again, it's the same thing as gold, right? If that person wants to go out in the world and make a bunch of gold to be able to spend at the GDKPs, they can do that, right? So maybe reward the player for playing the game.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting idea, and like, I mean, the whole loot system in general is pretty outdated. Like, there could definitely be some improvements there.
I
Like,
mean, we're in an age of gaming where it just doesn't make sense, right? Like we
mhm,
hardly, I don't think many people use group loot in raids at all. Like it's, if you do group loot, you're like pass on all just so the like looter can get it quickly and you can just go for a speed run sort of deal.
mhm.
But you know what I mean? Like it's usually done with an outside
Yeah,
source, and I think that's something that Blizzard could probably or easily manage.
yeah, it is weird to think about that. Like, basically, since vanilla, we like in raids we haven't really used a loot system within the game. It's all been like external. Like I remember it, like in vanilla we all probably had like a DKP loot system, and I know mine in particular, like I watched it like a hawk, because like the guy in charge of it might make some mistakes that might
Benefit him.
benefit him and not benefit some other people, specifically those of us who were competing against him for Warglaves of Azimuth. So I that was like my homepage, basically was our DKP website, and I just monitored it every single day, and I had some friends on the officer team, so I could talk to them to get some changes made to the DKP to make sure it like stayed consistent, and like anytime like one of those discrepancies came up, I made sure like they knew about it and they could fix that and set it to how it was supposed to be. Um, because yeah, there was a little bit of funny business going on, but
Yeah, it's just very weird that it's all external, right?
yeah, it's
Especially
like
with the funny
super
business and
weird.
whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like where you can manipulate
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's weird to think about, and it's been like that since the beginning. Like the entire time we've played WoW, it's been like, well, I guess at this point, like Loot Council is like way more popular, but like back then it was like all DKP, and it's like, yeah, I feel like they could have done something like through the in-game system to streamline that, make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I feel like something like my idea would have to be through the in-game thing. Otherwise, there would be like, outside developers or like edited versions of the add-on or whatever. You know what I mean? Because you
Oh
could you
yeah,
could literally
yeah,
just make an add-on right now that tracks anyone that
yeah,
logs a kill, and then the kill,
yeah.
puts
It
points
would
in their
have
bank.
to be like an official Blizzard thing. I
Yeah,
think.
for sure.
Although there is like EPGP. I don't know if you ever use that system,
Yeah,
but
I've used zero sum DKP. I've used everything. It's
I actually kind of like DPGP. I only use it for like a brief time, so maybe I didn't use it enough to see the flaws in it. But I was kind of a fan of that one. Seems solid. Anything more on that, or
no,
you're
that's
ready?
it. Just a
Okay.
little side tangent.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that. I just
No, no worries. That
I feel
was
like there's definitely some people out there that feel like the loot system at least is very outdated, and it just seems weird that we have like round robin as an option. Like, just get rid of it. Don't even use it. At
yeah.
very least, just get rid of that outdated system.
Boonja in chat also mentioning personal loot, but without the ability to trade items.
Oh yeah, true, true.
I think that's decent. Yeah, because like when they put in personal loot, like you could trade the items and then it like sort of just became a like more convoluted like master loot situation.
Yeah, yeah. Personal loot is actually not a bad thing too. Like, I mean, I know some people have their hate for it, but I think it's not the worst thing in the world. But I definitely think it should be a choice that is an option rather than the only option. If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. All right, let's go on to the next and actually last question. Again, make sure if you guys want any questions submitted to the podcast, join my Discord. You can go to the Submit Podcast Questions channel and put them in there. Then we will talk about them on the podcast. And we also have an email you can send them to. What's that email, Handa?
That is weeksandtavern@gmail. Easy peasy.
There it is. So the second one is coming from Great Gray. After the first round of testing, it feels like the MT position has been solidified for the expected blood decay. However, a lot of guilds experimented with the off tank. The DPS requirements of the fight seemed lower than expected, but the tank damage seemed higher than anticipated. This feels like the Feral Druid flexibility is diminished. How do you feel the tank comps will pan out after this weekend's testing? And more importantly, do you see paladins or warriors as more viable since they have raid cooldowns? So we tried some double blood decay this weekend, and I know a lot of other guilds were too. Double blood decay feels like kind of the play, at least like for early prog. Like once later on, once you're like getting into a bit more of the solo tank stuff, then I think Feral's gonna start to get a bit better as you're like just trying to optimize like speed kills and stuff. But for prog, double blood decay has seemed really good. That kind of seems like the way to go. And blood decay for the like true solo tank fights like Atromedies and stuff like that. I mean, the one of the blood decays just carries an unholy spec, which is one of the best DPS specs in the game right now. So I think double blood decay with one of them having an unholy off spec, probably the prog play. As far as prop warrior versus prop alley, I I mean I would give the edge to prop alley right now, but I need to see more from warrior and like play it more. I haven't played it a lot at 85. Prop alley feels solid to me, but I just really need more experience on Prot Warrior myself. It does look like they could have a really good role on Heroic Nefarian with the ad kiting. They seem to be the best tank for that. So they will at least get their moment to shine on, one of the hardest fights of the tier. So that gives them some value at least. Bringing the extra rallying cry, always solid, but you also lose last stand, shared cooldown, which really sucks. That's something I would kind of hope they change about Pro, where you should be able to use one of your staple personal defensive cooldowns and not, jeopardize your raid cooldown utility by doing that, I think. But yeah, I mean, I guess the summary there is, yeah, double blood decay, one with an unholy off spec seems like the play right now for prog.
Yeah, I'm gonna second
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna second that, and I think for as far as like world first and speedrunning guilds, it's probably just going to be like that. Either an holy off spec or a feral off spec versus the guardian, whatever. Right, because the damage intake doesn't matter so much for those guilds, right? Because they're just pumping out as much damage as possible. Those fights are shorter and stuff, so you can kind of be a little bit more flexible, right? Because it's like the top end players. I think for a more casual guild, I think whatever suits your needs best. You know what I mean? Like if the prop paladin and the warrior feel like they're taking a lot less damage, and the logs show that they're taking a lot less damage, use them. I don't think everyone will be solo tanking everything, right? Because there's definitely some people that are both hard headed or stubborn or whatever, right? Or just don't want to have to switch roles or whatever it is, right? They don't feel comfortable in other roles, so they'll just sit there and be like a Sunderbot or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Uh, So I just think that's the way it is, right? But I have limited testing on the beta of anything beyond Blood DK, and Blood DK feels super nice. So I'm going to advocate for that and abuse them while they're hot.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Words to live by: abuse them while they're hot. I
That's right.
think we might get thrown off the air for that one. Uh, second question from Gray Gray. Also, on launch day, what would you prioritize after 85? 7 daily heroics. Basically, the way this works in Cata is like you have a valor cap for the whole week. They essentially let you do like your dailies all at once if you want to. You aren't forced to do them just like one at a time each day. Um, so 7 daily heroics really is like weekly, the 7 weekly ones. But Solberad dailies or Therazane dailies. Given the time constraints of knocking all this out between launch on the 20th and weekly reset on the 21st. So this is pretty interesting because launch is going to be on a Monday. Reset day is on Tuesday. There's the Valor cap I just talked about. I believe it's 1k Valor a week. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's 1k Valor a week. But anybody who levels up really, really quickly and gets all this Valor done is essentially going to be an entire week ahead on Valor points compared to anybody who doesn't do that. So this is really important. This is something I could actually see Blizzard like disabling because it just like there's a massive incentive to like hit 85 and run a lot of heroics on the first day. And that may not be something Blizzard wants people doing. I know in the past they've done things to like limit this kind of thing, especially when it's like such a short amount of time to be able to benefit from this. So I could definitely see this changing, but as it stands right now, you're going to get a lot of value out of just getting as much valor as you can before the reset. You'll essentially, I mean, 1,000 valor is like almost, I mean, depending on what kind of item you're going for. I think the most expensive items are like 2,200. I could be wrong, but the range is like for a relic, maybe like 600, 700, up to, I think it's 2,200 for like legs and chest. So like you're getting, half an item, maybe a whole item, maybe most of an item, whatever. It's a lot. It's super, super worth it to get all that valor right before the reset. So that would be the top priority is hit 85. Make sure you get all that valor. Tolbarad also really important, but assuming the raids are coming out 10 days after launch, you have a little bit more time than you actually need to get Tolbarad exalted before the raids come out. So I would prioritize the valor for sure. Because you still have time for Tolbarad anyway, but I would also try to knock out Tolbarad dailies while you're in queue for like heroics and stuff. Like maybe you have a 5-man you're queuing with, so they'll be kind of instant, but people are going to take breaks and stuff. So like just be at Tolbarad. So any downtime there is, you're like working on dailies. And that way you can get the best of both worlds. But number one priority is for sure getting the Valor because that is just like a limited time opportunity, basically, to get that extra valor. And as far as Therazane, there's a tabard for that. Hopefully, you'll quest through Deep Home and you'll have that unlocked. And then while you're doing these heroics, you'll just get that Therazane rep. So it shouldn't really be a factor. The Therazane dailies, you'll just get that with the tabard. Um, it will be one of your like lower priority ones to get, so it will be a tabard you equip later. But yeah, that's what I would do. I would just prioritize Valor, do till broad like as you can in between queues, and just do that tabard for the Therazane rep.
I think for our tank boys, for sure, Tolbarad, and then for just generalization, the way is Valor for sure, right? But I think Valor should be just same with you. I'm seconding everything you said there. Therazane is the enchants, right? And they really are not as impactful as potentially that extra Valor piece or half of a Valor piece is, right? Which is insane. I definitely see them going a route where maybe they just don't even release those until like raid week or something like that, or I mean something, right? Because otherwise you have the average person will probably level 285 in, I don't know, I'd probably say like 13 to 18 hours, and if you're just not AFKing or working on your professions, that's just if you're questing and doing whatever you got to do, right, to get there. I think that's probably a pretty good average for the just a regular player, like a casual player. A lot of people are going to get it done a lot faster than that, but that really does not leave you a lot of time to do anything else. Like you're going to have to call out of work. If you're someone that works, you're going to have to miss school. If you're someone that plays or that's in school, just to play the game, I don't think it's a good incentive because there should always be balance in life and your hobbies and stuff, right? So hopefully Blizzard sees that. But I think it's also nice to reward the people that go super hard. But I think the reward is just far too great in this situation that they can't, like, they should curb it.
Yeah, I think
But Valor
it's
points go first for sure.
yeah, I think it's likely there's a change there, but if it remains as is, 100% Valor. All right. Let's get into the news then.
Let's get into it.
So unfortunately, we have a really sad one to start with, but did want to mention it because he was a really big part of just WoW's history, and I mean, maybe classic wouldn't have even have happened without him. So the vanilla WoW World Record speedrunner Joana unfortunately passed away. I mean, most people probably already know him. He set the vanilla leveling, speedrun leveling record that lasted until Classic came out. Wrote the most popular leveling guide in original vanilla. His world record run footage was used extensively by vanilla private servers to fact check. These servers wouldn't have been nearly as accurate without that footage. This was something I hadn't really realized, but I saw this brought up, and like when vanilla private servers were like first, coming about, and even later too, when they were trying to like get all the values right on everything. Joanna's old like speedrun record video was like an insanely good resource because it just showed it was like hours and hours of footage. I think it was like around 120 hours of just leveling footage. So like there was like lots of footage of like raids and stuff like that, but having like that many hours of just leveling footage, like more mundane things, allowed private servers to just like double check a lot of numbers and see how different things should work that typically weren't really things people recorded. So like apparently this was an incredible resource for these servers, and like these servers probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as good as they were without this footage. And if those servers hadn't been as good, then maybe they weren't as popular. Maybe we don't even get classic. So yeah, that was something I didn't realize, but yeah, like Joanna obviously had a huge impact on the WoW community, and definitely sad. But if you guys are interested in checking it out, Joanna does have a 24/7 stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Joanna, and his speed run just plays there on loop. So it's a place you can go to hang out, pay your respects, and watch some of the OG vanilla speedrunning. But yeah, I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no worries. So like I remember like when he set this record back in the day, and everybody, like it was all everybody was talking about, and like everybody was so impressed by the time, and yeah, like it sucks. Like definitely a core part of my WoW memories.
I definitely have some good memories with Joanna, but I also know them as Man Cow. And that's because I leveled a ton with Joanna and whispered quite a bit and helped and outside sources like in Ventrilo and stuff like that with some of the guides. I don't want to say that I shouldn't take any credit for them at all, right? But it was just like little tiny things. Like, hey, this would be a little faster here and there, because we leveled on every time that there was a new server. He was there with me. I was there with him, and it was just insane. I think my fastest time was like 5 days, 9 hours, and I remember being like 58, or whatever it was by the time he would always hit 60 right before me, and it was like, gotta beat this guy one time. Like I'm gonna do it. So I just my fondest memory was probably leveling with Joanna on Fire Tree in the original when it launched, uh, and then just racing and losing again to him, but being my closest that I ever was. So that's something that I enjoyed, and I'm sad to see him go. And I do love that the Twitch channel is still up, and that it has been up for quite a while. Because it gives a lot of memories, and just like the sound of the bow pulling back and then the immolation traps hitting. If you guys know, it just feels good. It like feels nostalgic. Um, but it's sad to see a big one go. I did not know about the private server stuff, so I thought that was actually pretty cool when I read the article. It's insane that something that long ago could impact something in the future so much, and potentially, like you said, pave the way for what we're playing now, right? For many people.
Yeah.
So good on you, Joanna, for if not just the guides, also that, because the guides were great too. I mean, it was Rested XP before Rested XP, right?
Yep,
So
exactly. All right. We're gonna move on next to the SoD PvP damage reduction test 2. So we talked last week about the first test, and they're doing another one. They didn't quite have everything how they wanted it. So this go around, it's going to be 20% damage reduction from all physical damage done to by players or pets, 30% reduced damage from magic attacks, and for 10 seconds after being damaged by another player or pet, the damaged player receives 20% less healing. This is going to be multiplicative. So if you have like an MS effect on you and this effect, it's going to be just multiplied together instead of added together. So it won't be 70% reduced healing. So this test started May 3rd and it'll end May 7th. Have you played around with this at all? Have you noticed anything?
I have a little bit, and I have some issues with the percentage-based system. And I will tell you this: when the first system got taken out, because we did the last round of testing last week or whatever, we spoke about it. When that got taken out for a short amount of time, holy smokes, it was mayhem. Like, bring it back immediately, right? That was better than nothing. But the problem with percentages, especially nerfing them across the board, is the players that were still powerful are still powerful. Lava Burst and Aim Shot and Chimera Shot or whatever, like, go really hard, right? Like, they deal a ton of damage. They have a decently short cooldown. Whether you nerf that by 50% or 100% even, right? And then also nerf the other classes that are, doing like minimal damage 100%. I don't think it's fair across the board, if that makes sense. I think it just keeps the same power level there. It's just we're doing smaller numbers.
Mhm.
You just don't get one shot, instead you get two shot, but you're still like losing the fight to the same person.
Yeah, you're saying like more class targeted tuning, where like
And
maybe
it should
like
be PvP specific, because
yeah.
they're definitely breaking the game when they're like, oh, let's give Shadow Priests way more damage and damage reduction, and then like to fix them in PvE, and then PvP they're monsters, and they were already monsters to begin with. So I think fixing individual abilities or classes in PvP scenarios specifically, so maybe like against a player target, this does X amount of damage.
Mhm.
I think those would be better nerfs, and I can't really tell how big of a difference this is compared to the last round of testing. I think the last round of testing was very similar to this in my perspective. So like either change is better than nothing. But I think you have to individually nerf the ones that are like super strong, or the abilities that are super strong, at least in PvP.
Yeah. In retail, that's like how they do it. From what I understand, is like each ability does different damage, like in PvP compared to PvE, and that seems to work a lot better. But it kind of seems like they're just kind of rediscovering throughout this all the like reasons like certain things happened in retail, because it's like the first thing they tried was, it was like essentially resilience, right? It was like reducing everybody's uh, damage taken by a set amount. Um, Now they're kind of adding in like dampening too with the healing part, and then like the next step would be just like the retail version where like different abilities do different PvP damage, which I mean, they went to that for a reason. It just allows you to fine tune things and make things more balanced. But yeah, it's been interesting to watch as somebody who's not like really invested in SoD anymore. I've definitely been like, I still read about it, try to keep up on it, and the amount of threads I see about people like upset about the PvP, it's seems like something needs to be done, but I don't personally really play it, so I can't say for sure. But
Yeah, I wonder if it'll cause more people to transfer. We talked about it last week, from
yeah,
the PvP to the PvE servers, because it's just some parts of it are just unfun. So
yeah, definitely. Like
there's no
if you just
counterplay
get
or
like
whatever.
one or two shot and you feel like you like didn't really have any counterplay for it, can't imagine that feels good.
No, it does not.
So next, staying on SoD, there's a new Discoverer's Delight EXP buff coming. I think it's already out now. And you're going to get 150% increased XP up to level 39 or through level 39. And then 100% XP buff for 40 to 49. So really quick to level now. If you have like fallen behind at all or want to level some alts up, this seems like a great opportunity to get back in. The next phase is probably going to come in June, I would think, like sometime after Cata launches. So you've got some time before that, but if you want to hop back into SoD, it will be much, much quicker to level. Have you checked this out at all? I believe it's live already.
I have not, but it's a great opportunity if you want to play one of those classes that is busted in PvP. There it is. Level up the
Yeah,
thing that you hate.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Become
exactly.
your own worst enemy. But yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think anything to expedite the leveling process, especially in a seasonal situation, and especially in an era that you want to try a lot of stuff, right? Because it is a season of discovery. Like you want to discover, it feels good to do that. So,
Yeah,
but that's all I
seems
could
good.
probably add there. Yeah, that's probably all I can add there. But yeah, it's good. I think it's good to let people wind down and level some more characters and get more experience on stuff. I think it's fine.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move on to Cata now. I'm sure all of you know that the pre-patch is live. We talked about it last week too. We did our podcast the night pre-patch came out, and things were really buggy. They are still pretty buggy, but a lot of things have been fixed since then. Um, Seals of Command. Did you see this at all, Hando? The
I
whole
did
Seals
see
of
some of it.
Command
Yeah, I did.
craziness. So this was wild. Ret Pallies could do potentially over like 2 million DPS. That that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. They could literally do like 2 million plus DPS. So with Tiny A-Bomb Jar, the new Seals of Command, not to be confused with Seal of Command, the old talent. Seals of Command makes your Seal of Righteousness hit all the targets around you, basically. And each of those hits could proc Tiny A-Bomb Jar. And when you get enough motes on Tiny A-Bomb Jar, then you do a melee attack that then also procs Seal of Righteousness on everything around you, which then procs Tiny A-Bomb Jar again. And basically there's an infinite DPS loop where every time you auto attack, you do infinite damage essentially because you're hitting everything around you. Everything you hit is procking Jar, which then procs Seal hits on everything around you, with which then procs Jar again, and that just goes on for infinity until all the mobs are dead. It does require like enough mobs that you're like reliably, getting a Jar proc on a single hit, but I mean, it was wild to watch. It was like crashing people's games because like the game just can't handle like somebody doing one auto attack and doing infinite damage off that, obviously. So it was crashing people's games, and um like watching some of the footage of this was funny because like Pallies would be going into like ICC, they would like pop bubble and then auto attack, and then their game would just completely freeze, and then slowly like they might get one frame like a minute and they'd see like the mobs go to half HP and then all the mobs were dead. Like um obviously needed to be fixed, but one of the funny little things we got from pre-patch, it has now been fixed. So can't have fun with that anymore, but obviously needed to be fixed.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of bugs.
Um so also the PvP gear got discounted significantly. I think it's like 200 honor now to get like a wrathful piece, and then for weapons it's like 800. So when I had like ran over there initially on one of my characters that like really needed a new weapon, it was like 2400 honor. I think it was like way too much. Like it's tough to get honor right now, and like I just skipped it. But then they reduced the price, so I ended up buying the 277 weapon on my new DK, and now I'm doing a lot more damage. So feeling good about that. So if you're looking to gear up a new character, this is like the quickest way. You're gonna get really good gear for really cheap just through some honor if you haven't already done that. The another big bug there was the archaeology dig sites were spawning in like cata zones that you can't actually go to right now. So a lot of people had issues with this where like they did archaeology and then they started getting spawns that were in like Twilight Highlands and they just couldn't get to them. So instead of having like 4 dig sites on Eastern Kingdoms, then they had 3. And then another Twilight Highlands one spawned. So now they only have 2. And so people were just getting essentially their character bricked like that. They did fix it so those won't spawn anymore, but there hasn't been a fix yet for people who already had existing dig sites in those inaccessible zones. It sounds like there is going to be a fix coming on Tuesday for that. It's coming soon, hopefully on Tuesday. So if you were one of those unfortunate people who has kind of bricked dig sites right now, hopefully on Tuesday they'll fix that for you. You'll be able to get back to maximum digging efficiency.
And hopefully it's just enough time to get that sweet item that you want, whether it be the staff, the shield, the trinket, or the Zinrock.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Lots of us trying to farm that to no avail, but we just keep digging, we keep praying, and hopefully you get there.
I did hear a little rumor about this too.
Okay.
If you get the collector's edition and you wear your pin, you actually have a higher chance to get the item that you wanted. So just a heads up there.
Yeah, I seem to recall hearing that too from you just now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we heard it from the same source, which was me or my mind.
Yeah. Could you imagine though? What if like if you're reading the collector's edition like Ragnaros mount thing? What if that like increases your chance to get Zenrock? I could
Blizzard,
definitely
get
see
on
that.
it. Blizzard, get on it. Pay to win.
Pay to
come
win.
on.
Yeah, people were already kind of upset. Did you see the thing about the what's it called? Like town in a I forget the name of the toy. You know what I'm talking about? The town in a box or whatever.
Oh yeah. For goblins, little
Yeah.
toy town in a box or something.
Yeah. You can get like a reforger out of that. People were like,
Oh,
I mean, it is kind of crazy. It is a little bit pay to win, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just gotta pay, then I can win.
that's it. I mean, it was the same thing with like I think the Hearthstones had like a different cooldown or something early on.
Oh, the like TBC one.
Yeah, the like Dark Portal one or whatever. So there was like a
it's
little
kind of
something going on with
OP.
that too. Yeah, you can imagine, especially with like archaeology, that was great.
Yeah.
So
So there were also a bunch
would
of
be great.
fixes today. At the time of this podcast, this is May 6th. So we got a bunch of fixes today. Account-wide achievements that reward titles now grant them at an account level. So if you were missing those before, you should have those now. You may need to log in to the appropriate character for that. Let's see. They also blood decays were apparently blood presence was actually increasing your chance to be crit, which isn't exactly what you're looking for as a tank. So they did fix this though. Before it seemed like you could just refresh your presence and that would like kind of fix it before too. But in any case, they say it's now fixed. So hopefully you won't be getting crit anymore as a blood decay. There was a bug where I don't know if this one's been fixed yet, but there was a bug where in Ulduar, just for like killing any boss, you would get credit towards like the Conqueror of Ulduar achievement, like the Deathless thing. And he feeds on your tears, like anything deathless, you would just get, like regardless of who died. And so and like those achievements like shouldn't even still be available. But not only are they still available, but like you just get them for free. So I don't know if that's been fixed yet, but a few days ago it was a really big deal. Like everybody was just forming groups for Ulduar to get these achievements for free. So if you want those, you could see if that's still a thing.
And if you don't, I understand stolen valor. It's a very real thing. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't be one of those people that has Survivor of the Firelord just because they transferred their Psalm character at the right time and didn't
Yeah.
actually earn it.
And don't be someone that's jealous because they didn't play some and didn't do that. Equally
Hmm.
bad things.
I don't know about that. I think it's
The
uh
stolen valor's worse, you think?
I think it is. I think it is. But I mean, we're just talking about hypotheticals. Obviously, nobody in this chat right now falls into either of those categories.
That's right. That's right.
Um, so also apparently older bosses were doing way more damage than they should. That I believe is still happening right now too. Um, a lot of people were telling me like they did Algalon and like they were dying in like 1 second. So if you are going in there for these free achievements, if they're still available, watch out because these bosses might wreck you. They might still be doing way too much damage.
Would you say Kolagarn has hands? I'll
Um
see myself out.
yeah, you do that. Uh
He's got hands.
yeah, I think that's kind of the main fixes they had. They also noted that the Darkmoon Fair is going to be closed until Cata launch. It sounds like it just isn't ready yet. So in Cata, it becomes like the Darkmoon Fair Island. In case you guys remember that, it just gets moved to its own like separate zone. And I think it's just not ready yet. So they're just not opening it until Cata launch. But you can look for the Darkmoon Fair Island once Cata comes out. And that's pretty much it for the pre-patch so far, but we did have our first raid test on beta this weekend. The next raid test is going to be the 14th through 17th. That's going to be during the weekday, during the week. So they did their first one during the weekends. They do the next one like during the week, just to give people with different schedules like more of an opportunity to check it out. So the first raid test, I got to do most of the bosses on 25-man heroic. We did 5 out of 6. We got to check out in Blackwing Descent. We just did Conclave in Throne, and then we checked out 3 out of 5 in BOT. So across those, there were several bugs. The fights are like generally functional though. Like I heard on Alakir, we didn't actually do Alakir, but I heard on Alakir like the final phase it was doing way too much damage and just kind of killing everybody. But all the fights we did do, there were like some minor bugs like a lot of like projectiles that like come from the sky. Like they should have like an indicator on the ground. They didn't, like on Halphus and Atromedes. But you could still kind of like play around it by just looking at the projectile. So it wasn't a huge deal, but just like a small bug. And on Conclave, the Nazir, he's like the frost one. He puts like ice patches on the ground on his platform, but they were actually targeting anybody in the entire room. So people over on like the wind platform and the nature platform, they were also getting these permafrost or I can't remember the name of it actually. Frost patch. I think it's just called frost patch. Permafrost is like breath. But yeah, there were just these frost patches everywhere, which like made the encounter kind of weird. Because normally you don't deal with that. And then Nazir, the frost guy, his frontal is like a kind of a tank buster ability. And it was like randomly targeting other people. So it was like super weird. So when the whole raid was like stacked over there, he might like turn and like breath like the entire raid. So that was a bit goofy, and hopefully that'll get fixed. But in general, there weren't like there were a decent amount of bugs, but most of them weren't really like encounter breaking. I think the Conclave ones were like the had like the biggest impact on the fight, of the ones we saw. But
Did you
one,
ensure to report them?
yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we were monitoring like the GitHub page too. We didn't bother reporting ones that were already like known issues, but yeah, anything that wasn't, we did. And one thing that was kind of interesting was that the bosses were all post nerf. So we've gotten a lot of like pre nerf bosses throughout Classic, and this time around it looks like they're just doing everything post nerf. So that was interesting to see. Because like on we've been playing a little bit on a private server lately, and it was actually kind of shocking like how easy some of the bosses were compared to on there. Because like on Magma, for example, I think the ads had like half the HP as they did on the private server. Um, and Omnitron, one of the two optional like first bosses, you can kill Magma or Omnitron first. In Blackwing Descent, Omnitron had like I think like 40% less HP, something like that, than it did on the private server. So a lot of things were just kind of falling over like way quicker than expected. So that was interesting to see. But throughout Classic, we've kind of seen like the player counts like drop a lot anytime content's harder. So I wasn't really expecting pre-nerf, but so far at least it does look like it will be post nerf. Maybe in the next beta cycle we see some pre-nerf stuff, but I really doubt it. I think they're probably just going with the post nerf, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, probably just whatever's easier to develop. I mean, it's kind of the road they're taking, right? Where they're just not giving as much attention to this version of the game that we would like to see as players of it. So hopefully they make those little changes, because I definitely like seeing like the pre-nerf stuff. Uh, not only does it set a lot of guilds apart, but it also makes the game a little bit more challenging, right? Which is great for people that enjoy the challenge of a thing, of a game, just in general.
Yeah, my probably my favorite part of raiding is like the prog part. So having like a little bit harder encounters that you get to prog a little bit longer, I think is pretty fun. And then like maybe once like Firelands comes out, then you would set everything to post nerf. For me, I think that would be like the ideal way to do it, but I understand if they just don't have the time to do it and don't have the desire, probably. Really, I think it's just kind of in Blizzard's best interest to like make them post nerf, like to keep player count higher, but also just take some less time. So I'm not
I
expecting to see the pre nerf, but it would be
I pre-
pleasantly
I
surprised.
prefer yeah, I prefer a working version, uh, post nerf, than a pre-nerfed version that just doesn't work. So
Yeah,
if that
absolutely.
if that's our option, is to spend the developer time on ensuring that the bosses actually work, I think that's better. So good choice if that's the limiting factor there, Blizzard. Thank you if you're listening.
Yeah. Overall though, I was pleasantly surprised by like the state the encounters were in. Like given how long it took for us to like see rid testing and how like it seems like they have a really big backlog of stuff they need to like fix right now in the game in general. It was good to see like the state raids are in right now. There's definitely like some bugs, but I was expecting it to be much buggier than it ended up being. So it was definitely good to see that everything's in a pretty functional state right now. And it seems like they just have to clean up a little bit of stuff. But one thing they've had issues with in the past is like when there's multiple difficulties, there's like 10 man, 25 man, there's normal and heroic. They've had issues before with like certain bosses doing the wrong version of an ability. So
Future
like
side.
yeah, Putrid Side prime example. Like Unbound Plague on 10-man doing the 25-man damage, on 25-man doing the 10-man damage. That's still a bug that exists today. And then a new Brack during TOGC testing, he was using the normal version of Leeching Swarm on Heroic sometimes. So they have had issues with that kind of stuff in the past. I personally only did 25-man Heroic for the whole test, so I didn't see if like there was anything weird like that going on. As far as I know, all the mechanics on 25-man Heroic were doing the correct damage, but I didn't try the other 3 ways to do the fight, so maybe there were some bugs there I missed. But I overall I was just like really surprised how good of a state the raids were in. It feels like it's very achievable for them to get them fully functioning before launch. And it seemed like before this, it seems like they were so far behind on everything that wasn't gonna be a possibility, but it's looking good right now. I'm excited.
Yeah, so hopefully that's maybe what took them that extra time to release the raids that we were like frantically wondering if they were even going to release them. So maybe they
Yeah.
just took that little bit of extra time and care and put it right into that. So yeah, I mean it's good that things are working or nearly working as intended the first go around, because we've seen a lot of bugs in in the past in all versions of the game, right? So um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it seemed like it was probably the same amount of bugs as like ICC when like that first test happened. So it doesn't seem to me like they're behind on their like testing of the raid, and I'm pretty hopeful it can release like 10 days after launch and be mostly bug free. Like I'm sure like some things will like slip through, but I think it'll be like functional for sure, like very functional.
how do you feel about like the raids going forward? Are you hoping for maybe a more either extended raid test or further in advance so that if we do have some bugs, they're not so limited in time? Is that something that you'd like to see? Because I know you like to test things a lot, so
Um
just wondering your stance on that.
yeah, I mean in the past they've done like 3 raid tests for every raid, which seems like kind of what they need for these like bigger raids, cuz every raid test I can think of, like there's still like bugs that are found in each one. So it seems like each raid test is necessary, right? So this time we're only gonna have 2. It seems like it would be good to have 3, but I mean we'll see what the state of the raids are like in the next test, but I was really happy with where they're at in test 1, and I think they can have it like almost completely functioning correctly for test 2 hopefully. But again, the different difficulties and abilities between those, that would be kind of the main thing, because like if you're doing 10-man normal and bosses are using like heroic versions of abilities, maybe even 25-man heroic versions of abilities, that's going to be a bit of a problem. But that's also not something like I personally was seeing, because I wasn't doing those versions. But yeah, hopefully lots of people are gonna test all the versions, and we can get a good working set of raids on launch.
It's also crazy to note that it's 3 separate raids too, just like in the beginning of Wrath launch. It's
Yeah.
3 separate instances that you're entering. So Fireland's the next one. While it's a huge place and the bosses are definitely difficult and it's a lot to do. This, I mean, you're going to 3 different places like entirely, right? And then there's what, like 15 bosses or something. There's like an absurd amount of bosses.
Yeah,
So
there's
to
gonna
fix
be
everything,
13. Yeah.
yeah, to fix everything is hopefully they pull through. But I mean, it looks hopeful from the lack of bugs that we've seen, right? So
Yeah. I mean, definitely bugs for them to fix, but it seems 100% achievable. And I really wasn't sure what kind of state these raids were going to come out in, but for the first raid test, but it looks like they're on track, and this can definitely be finished in time. Anything else you want to talk about like Cata Prepatch? Anything else for this week?
no, other than like there being some crazy bugs. I don't know if the listeners and viewers want to reach out to us and tell us about their funniest moments and bugs and stuff like that. We'd love to hear from you guys. One of my favorite things recently was on this Thursday. One of my friends had reached out to me and said, "Hey, we had a weird bug in Cata where in ICC we could not use Bloodlust because the shaman that used it was on cooldown the entire time or something like that." So there's definitely some fun bugs out there. So if there's any more Seal of Command stuff or stories about seals of command, sorry, please reach out and tell us, because personally I love hearing about like that silly stuff that's not too game breaking, but a little like game disrupting, but not to a point where Blizzard has to step in and be like, "Oh, you guys are all banned." So
Yeah. Yeah, the funny bugs that
yeah, give me the funny bugs.
just create some interesting gameplay. I did really enjoy like mages. Their ignite was bugged, and like they weren't quite getting to the the ret pally infinite damage levels, but it was interesting to see because like they were pulling 100, 200, even more than that 1,000 DPS on some things, and um as a Cata tank, like I'd be like, pumping thread into something for like a full minute, and then suddenly the nameplate turns yellow, meaning like somebody's close to me on threat, and I'm like, what is going on? And I just had to have that, taunt trigger finger ready, because these mages were still able to rip threat even with the 500% tank threat modifier, which was kind of insane. But I think it's not really going to be an issue now because I believe Ignite's fixed now. But I mean, fire mages in general, like they can just pop off sometimes and do some crazy threats. So keep an eye on it.
Yeah, you're a great tank. So to see the threat meter like creep up on you is a worrying sign for someone like me that's not nearly as good of a player as you, or like at least in that role, right? So it's it's a little concerning for me when I'm like, oh god, I got to compete with that now. I don't know if I could do as well as he could. So I'm glad that it's been fixed, but it looked like it was fun while it lasted. So
Yeah, just I mean, have a good bind for your taunt, like you should
that's
anyway.
it.
But have a good bind for that taunt and be ready to press it on a dime, because those fire mages, they'll just come out of nowhere. Sometimes the nameplate doesn't even turn yellow. They get that much threat like in such a short time. The nameplate doesn't even like register it, and they just insta pull. So
Or
it's been fun.
how about the old I know you know some tanks that have the mentality that you pull it, you tank it. How about that? Just, you know what? You pull it, you tank it. That's
Um
it.
no, that
Yeah. Yep.
doesn't fly
Yep.
for me.
Mhm.
Uh
Mhm.
as a tank, I 100% everything's on me or I'm failing at my job. Uh like yeah, it hurts me. If I see a red nameplate, like I die a little bit inside. That needs to be fixed immediately.
Yeah, sometimes there's those moments though. You get a nice booty pull from someone and you're just not ready for it. You just wish you had more tools in your arsenal, sometimes. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
got that many.
mean,
Where's my Gorfine's grasp?
that's one of the big things to for newer tanks to work on is just vision. Just a lot of times you can just like see things before they happen as a tank, and like when we're skipping like a trash pull, I'm watching that trash pull because like I know there's a coin flip chance in a lot of groups, maybe more than that. Somebody's gonna pull that pack. So whenever we're skipping a trash bag, I'm just watching that pack like a hawk. Like I'm ready to pick it up as soon as somebody pulls it, because a lot of times they do. And if you can react to it quickly, it you know usually nothing bad happens.
I am the same way where I'm like playing like fully zoomed out and then I'm making sure like what's going on around me at all times. And that's why sometimes I may seem like a know-it-all and stuff when I'm raid leading. I'm like, oh, saw that coming. And it's just kind of how you have to play, I guess, as a tank. But it reminds me sometimes where you're just like, you just you know the situation is coming, you just did not want to be in it at all. And it reminds me of that like Simpsons meme where the guy enters the bar and then just immediately does like a turnaround and then just leaves.
Yeah,
It just reminds me of that. So it's like, nope, I don't want to be here.
yeah.
I
Um,
didn't cause this mess.
yeah. For newer tanks though, that is one of the skills you can work on is literally just like foresight, like thinking about what can go wrong and then paying attention to those things and being ready for them in case they do go wrong. Definitely takes time to acquire that, but one of the most important things you can do, I think, as a tank is just essentially being able to see the future, because like if you're aware that a certain pack could get pulled at a bad time, you can reposition the mob so it just doesn't even happen in the first place, like the current mob you're fighting, and make it like less likely. Or just yeah, just keep an eye on it in general, so like if somebody does like pull something extra, like you are ready to just immediately react to it. And you can definitely save a lot of wipes by just kind of being vigilant, watching out for just predicting like what can go wrong. And I mean, sometimes that comes through experience too. A lot of the times it does. Is like you wipe to some weird like extra pull, and just internalize that, make sure you're ready for that next time. And yeah, just don't let it happen again.
Yeah, I can't stress how much that is an actual thing, right? To like see a problem once and then be able to fix it and then you know when it's coming again. So I love that. I think it's definitely a thing, right? Experience is definitely a thing because it
Yeah.
feels like you can just literally tell what's going to go down because you can tell either the type of player or the type of environment that's going to cause those issues.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes it like hard for like newer tanks too, just to get into tanking, is like a lot of tanking is just experience. Like, so newer tanks, they haven't built up all that experience yet, so it can be rough, like when you're first starting tanking, and you don't have that wealth of experience to like draw from and be able to like see these problems before they happen. And that can make the early part of tanking pretty rough, because like when those things happen, then the group like flames you, and then you have a bad experience, and a lot of tanks just end up like quitting based on that. So um big thing is just like kind of sticking it out through the early part that's a little bit more rough. And once you can get through that early part of like being a new tank, things get way better, and it gets a lot more fun. I remember when I first started tanking, I first started getting really into it back in OG Wrath. And when I was doing RDF, I usually had to mute like the entire group, like, or I would just turn off my chat log, like go to my combat log, so I couldn't even see chat, because like when you're a new tank, you're making mistakes, people are just flaming you, they aren't saying anything helpful, right? It's not like there's no real learning experience, they're just being like shitty to you. And it just kind of makes you not have a great time. And for me to get through that part of it, I just like turned off chat. And once I got more experience and I kind of knew what I was doing, I turned it back on. And then things got a lot better. But those early runs as a tank, when you don't quite know what you're doing yet, definitely can be rough.
Yeah, I agree there for sure. And add-ons, there are certain add-ons that are just like for me are you can't live without, especially as a tank like WeakAuras and Plater. I think Plater is
Yeah.
probably the biggest one for tanks, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Plater, WeakAuras, two mandatory add-ons for tanks for sure. Um, yeah. If I could only have two add-ons, it'd be those two for sure.
Yeah, those are definitely the tank helpers. I mean, general helpers, honestly, right? Good frames, good enemy frames, and then good weak auras to give you all the information that you may need for your specific class are probably on the top of the list for many people. And it's not Bagnon, right? So it doesn't break every time there's an update. So that's good. The developers definitely keep an eye on it, and they're like up to date almost immediately, right? So that's also a huge plus.
Yep. All right. I think that'll wrap up this week. Good luck, everybody, on your archaeology. I'm sure many of you are still digging. I know I am. I've got the shield. Still looking for the Zinrock. We still got, probably a few weeks before both Cata launches and the raids come out. So I'm gonna, pace myself. I'm only at like 93, I think, troll solves right now. So I probably got another 900 to go. We'll see what happens, but we're slowly working our way there, and hopefully going to Cata with a Zinrock.
Well, I think you know what I think it is too. Before we send off here, I think they're just trying to make you mad at yourself for doing this. So maybe some would say it's a war within.
Whoa. Yeah.
It's a little
Yeah. I didn't think
foreshadowing.
about that. Yeah. Yeah. Whoa. It's cross wow foreshadowing.
That's
Whoa.
right.
The war within. The whole time it was archaeology. Wow.
That's right. That's right.
Incredible. Incredible. The insights.
Just
I
remember,
love it.
don't have a war within yourself, and make sure to wear your pins. And good luck with that archaeology. That's it.
All right, guys. Good luck with your archaeology. Thank you for watching, listening, however you choose to consume this podcast. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks
We
for
appreciate
watching.
you so much. Thank you.
See you later.